Hello everyone, my name is Hannah. Welcome to a new video. So a little while back, not very long, like I don't know, a week or two ago, I made a TikTok of books that made me cry, and I got to thinking that I should make a video about it because I don't think I have a video about like sad books or books that made me cry. So I have a stack of books here. Most of them were already like in that TikTok, but I have one that I like just very recently read that is making the list. So I just wanted to talk about the books a little bit more. So if you saw that TikTok or, whatever, you just want some sad book recommendations, here we are, let's go. So most of these books are books that I read this year in 2021. I have a couple that aren't from that I read this year. So I'm gonna start with those. The first one, I feel like if you've read this book, it will definitely make your list of like the saddest books you've ever read, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I read this last year, and I still think about it like pretty regularly. It is incredibly sad and heartbreaking and very difficult to read at times, honestly. There are so many trigger warnings or content warnings that I would put on this book, and it's just not a book to be picked up on a whim or picked up lightly. I don't even know that I would recommend this book because it's so heavy. Out of all of the books on this list, this one is by far the darkest and the most emotional. I don't want to give away too much of what this book is about, but basically it follows this group of friends who they're just trying to make their way in life. They live in New York and they're just trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives and just living their lives. And the one character, Jude, is just kind of mysterious, and they don't really know anything about his past. He never talks about his past, and you see snippets of them in the present time, what's going on with them now, and then also what's happened in Jude's past, and none of it is pleasant. So if you're wanting, a happy book or a book that is sad but will have a happy ending, this is not the book for you, okay? This is literally super, super sad. It is a masochist's dream, honestly. It's just not gonna make you happy. Some people have described this book as torture porn because it's just beating you over the head with these awful things that happen to this character, and it literally just never ceases. It is sad all the way up until the last page. I did a whole reading vlog of this when I read this book for the first time last year, and there's a whole B-roll clip of me just literally sobbing as I'm reading this. I went through probably an entire box of tissues just with this book alone. So yeah, out of all of these, this is definitely the saddest book on here, and the one that probably made me cry the most because it's just nonstop sadness. So if you are considering reading this book, definitely look up the content warnings. I have my Goodreads linked below, and I have an entire list of content warnings that I would put on this book, but there may be more. So just do your research before you dive into this if it's something that you can handle, and definitely try to practice some self-care and self-love while you're reading this because it is an emotional journey. Okay, the other book that is on my list of sad books and books that made me cry that I did not read this year is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I feel like this is another one where people get really sad and emotional with it. This book is set in World War II, and it follows this girl, Liesel, who is in Germany, who's German, during the war, and her family, hides a Jewish person in their basement, and so they're, constantly terrified that that's going to be discovered, and they're all going to be, killed or put in prison. And it's called The Book Thief because Liesel, at the time when there's, all these book burnings going on, she steals some books. She steals a book and then reads it, and kind of it's her little act of rebellion kind of. But yeah, the whole book is narrated by Death, and I found that to be very fascinating. It wasn't Death is an evil character, it's just part of life. But yeah, this one, it's been a few years since I've read it, but I just remember reading it and sobbing and crying throughout it because it gets very emotional. So I feel most people have probably read this book by now, but if you haven't yet, it's a good one. It's a great book. You should definitely read it. Okay, the next book that I'm going to talk about is the first book that I read this year that made me cry, and I'm not even a little bit surprised by that fact. It is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 4 in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. There's an original trilogy. And then there's these books following different characters. Like you're always in like you're following Feyre in the original trilogy, and now this book is from Nesta's point of view, Feyre's sister, if you didn't know. And I'm, again, not going to say too much about this book since it's like the middle of a series. Like you really need to know what happens in the original trilogy that leads up to this point to really understand why it's so emotional. But I'll just say that this book deals a lot with mental health and like self-hatred and trying to heal from that and heal from the traumas of your past. It's a really emotional journey, especially when you're attached to the characters. I annotated this one obviously because Sarah J Maas is my favorite author, and like all the blue tabs are all the like the sad moments or the moments that made me cry. And there are a lot of them. Yeah, again, I'm not gonna say too much about this one since it is the middle of a series, but just know it made me cry. I have a whole reading vlog for it. Spoilery, if you've read the book and you want to see my like in-depth thoughts of it, I'll link that in the cards. All right, the next book I have on my list here is Brightside by Kim Holden. This one, I knew it was going to be emotional. I was told that it was going to be a very like sad, emotional book. And I didn't really cry until like the very ending, like the last 50 pages. And when I cried, I cried. It gets you after a while. But like the majority of the book, I wouldn't say is sad. It's just like the ending is really sad. Basically, it follows this girl, Kate, who is nicknamed Brightside because she's always looking on the bright side of life. She is super optimistic, and even when bad things are happening, she tries to find a positive out of it and tries to not let it get her down for too long. She basically just tries to live her life on the bright side because life can be really hard and there can be things that can really like beat you down. She moves from California to Minnesota to go to college. I think it's Minnesota. And yes, Minnesota. And she meets this guy, Keller, and they kind of hit it off, and it's them like their blooming relationship, you know, friendship to relationship kind of thing. I listened to this book on audio, which was really good, and I had the ebook, and then when I finished it, I was like, no, I need to own the physical copy. So when I do a reread of this, I'll definitely be annotating in it because there are a lot of really great moving lines. I just wish that I could like go through and like flip through and read those lines because it's so good. Yeah, I feel like not a ton of people have read or heard of this book, so I heard about it from Steph Borer. I read this for a reading vlog that I did of reading books that I'm picking up specifically because of Steph Borer, as with like these next two too. That's I picked up for that vlog, so if you're interested again in my in-depth thoughts on those, I'll link that vlog too. But yeah, this one is not like a beat you down kind of sadness. It's more of a like uplifting, like yes, it's sad, but it's also beautiful, you know? Which leads me to my next book that I'm going to talk about, which is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This is another one that's like, yes, it's sad, but it's also beautiful and uplifting and really makes you think about life a little differently. This was one though where I cried throughout the whole book. Like I started it on audio again, and as I was like listening to it, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna need to save this because I want to have the physical book in my hand so I can annotate it. So yeah, I started it, and then I went back and started annotating things because it's another one where just like the writing is so beautiful. Some people, I saw reviews of it that said that they thought the writing was really cheesy, and I just don't agree with that. I think the writing is really beautiful and like moving. It's stuff that really sticks with you and lines that really make you think. It follows the relationship of Poppy and Rune. They meet when they're little kids and they develop this friendship, and Poppy's grandma tells her that she's giving her this jar and she needs to fill it with 1,000 boy kisses. So there's paper hearts in it, and every time she feels like her heart is about to burst with happiness, she has to write down that kiss happened and put it in her jar. Hence why it's called 1,000 Boy Kisses. And so of course they grow up together, Rune and Poppy, and they go from friendship to relationship to this really like beautiful young love. And then Rune, who is originally from Norway, his father has to move back there for work, and so Rune has to move with him. And they say that they're gonna, you know, keep this long distance relationship going, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere Poppy just stops talking to Rune and you don't know why. And then a year or two later, Rune comes back to that town and is like really upset with Poppy that she like cut off this like love and this friendship that they've had since they were little. And then of course you find out why she did that, and it's their like them like picking that love back up again, and it's just so beautiful. I hope I'm doing it justice, like trying to explain this book, but I don't know. It's really, really beautiful, and I feel like if you didn't like this book, I guess I can understand like why you would think the writing is cheesy, but I just didn't think that at all. I thought it was so beautiful and so like touching. Like it's stuff that I like will flip through and read those lines again and again and just like cry. But yeah, it's another one where it's like from the very beginning, it's sad and emotional and makes you cry all the way until the very last page. So if you're interested, I would highly, highly recommend this book. It's one of my new favorite books of all time. And then next up, I have two Colleen Hoover books that I want to mention that definitely made me cry. The first one is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This is another one where it didn't make me cry until like towards the end. There's a reveal that happens that is just so heartbreaking. And I'm pretty sure before I picked this book up, I knew that like reveal, and I was just like waiting for it to happen the entire time. Like the anticipation of it was like, I don't even want to turn the next page because I know what's gonna happen. But yeah, reading that reveal was like super, super emotional and made me cry like a lot. It follows Tate and Miles, who Miles is Tate's brother's, like one of his friends, one of his best friends, and he lives across the hall from Tate's brother, whose name I don't remember. But Tate ends up having to like move in with her brother for a bit, and so she meets Miles and they strike up this like, you know, kind of banter, and they decide to have a friends with benefits relationship. And one of Miles' rules is like, don't fall in love with me, or what does he say? Don't expect a future and don't ask about my past. Those are his rules. And Tate's like, okay, like I'm gonna take what I can get because I really like you. So, but then that leads to, you know, feelings that they catch for each other. But Miles has something from his past that is really holding him back, and he just has like a really hard time finding happiness and feeling joy. But yeah, I wasn't sure if I would cry in this one since I was like spoiled for the reveal, so I knew what was gonna happen. So like I thought maybe expecting it to happen would lessen the emotional impact of it, and no, that wasn't the case. I still cried like a baby. And then the last one here is a recent reread for me. I just read this last weekend, and it's All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. This book deals very heavily with infertility, so if that is a trigger for you, definitely skip this one because that is like what the whole story is based off of, and it is intense to read about. You follow Quinn and Graham, and you follow them in the past, like when they met, and then you watch them falling in love. And then interspersed with their love story, you're seeing them in the present time and watching their like marriage fall apart because of this infertility issue that they're having. And Quinn is just like super depressed. It's just really sad to see like them falling in love, and you're really rooting for them, and then to see them, you know, years later in the present, like watching their love fall apart. And reading about infertility was a very emotional journey. It was just really sad to read about and like see their love falling apart because of it. Yeah, this was another one that I cried like throughout the whole book because I don't know, it's just Colleen Hoover just wrote it really, really well, and it's an intense topic to talk about, and so of course there's emotions tied to that. And yeah, I just like sobbed through this whole thing. I just feel like Colleen Hoover writes emotional, like heartbreaking romances really well, but at least the ones that I've read, I've come to realize that I can expect to have like a sad emotional journey, but I'll get the happy ending that I'm looking for, that I kind of need after all of the emotional trauma that I go through when reading her books. So yeah, those are all of the books that I have on my list of books that made me cry. Again, most of them I read this year, so I don't know what it was. I just was like in my sad girl moment this year and just wanted to like read some emotional books. So if you have any recs like similar to those ones, I would definitely be interested to hear it because I'm just like trying to make my way through Colleen Hoover's backlist, and I just, you know, I'm really in the mood for like an emotional time, you know? Also, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and if they've made you cry. I would be interested to hear that. And thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!